It's not offense, it's not defense, it's we fence. And with that, we welcome in Anthony Bellino. You see him every morning right here on BCSN at the X's and Bros Show. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us.
Mark, is always a pleasure. You know, we fence. Is that like fencing, like on guard? Like we need to unsheath our swords? Like, what are we doing here? What is this we fence we speak of?
Well, I mean, Jim Harbaugh says the head coach is the guardian of victory, so I guess maybe you can add a sword play in there, as the Michigan Wolverines' first guardian of victory was Jesse Minter against East Carolina, and boy, he did not disappoint, as they only allowed the late field goal, put up plenty of points, as the Michigan Wolverines came out and did what we expected them to do against the Pirates.
You know, first off, guardian of victory is great. Second, that's such a Jim Harbaugh-ism right there. Secondly, did Michigan, though? I mean, when we really look at this football game, and I want to go right to the very first offensive series. So ECU is going to punt away. I'm standing next to Brad Robbins, the former Michigan punter, who's now with the Cincinnati Bengals. We're standing next to each other on the sidelines, and ECU is going to punt away from the return man, Mr. Thaw there for Michigan, and he's going to kick this low end-over-end bouncer, right? And this thing probably lands. It's within the 20, takes a huge hop. Thaw can't get to it, can't field it, don't want to do that. Okay, so it's end over end. Now we're inside the 5. Michigan's play calling, per usual, very predictable. And what was very surprising about that opening drive, and something that I kind of stood with me the rest of the game, is the fact that the offensive line really got no push. And that was also the same on the defensive side of the football, right? I mean, ECU did not surrender a sack in that football game. That to me was very concerning. The score could have been 30-3. It could have been 300-3. It didn't really matter to me. It was nice to see JJ McCarthy slinging around. I thought a lot of his passes were a little bit low, but that's just me nitpicking on a guy who had 4 incompletions all game, threw for 280 yards. And in fact, I think that, you know, as far as it goes for Michigan quarterbacks who have thrown the ball for more than 300 yards in a football game, it's only happened 18 times in the last 13 years, since 2010. So it's not really a very common thing, but 280 is a nice number. 280 and 3 touchdowns with 4 incompletions. Yes, that's nitpicking. 73 yards from Blake Corum. Take away that 37-yard run, that long scamper. Now what do we have there? 37 yards for Donovan Edwards on 12 carries. Nothing really spectacular there. To me, the score was fine, 30-3. Yeah, whatever. You didn't cover. Great teams, good teams win, great teams cover. That's what they say, right? This is not a gambling segment, nor do I wouldn't encourage anybody to do such a thing. But 30-3 doesn't say a whole lot to me against a team in ECU that you look at scores that Georgia put up, that Alabama put up. You look at the way that Florida State handled LSU, top 10 on top 10 matchup right there. I don't really like this game because I don't really like what we saw in the trenches for Michigan, both offensively and defensively. I don't think that they were as dominant as they should have been.
I hear your point. Let me give you this counterpoint, particularly with Michigan running the ball. East Carolina was loading the box. They were taking away the run. They're saying, J.J. McCarthy, you've got to beat us. And J.J. McCarthy had the highest completion percentage of any Michigan quarterback with 30 or more attempts in a game. So, and similarly on the other side of the ball, where ECU, very quick to get the ball out of the pocket because they wanted to avoid those speed rushers coming off the ends. So I hear what you're saying, but I think you have to give some credit to ECU's game plan. They were trying to neutralize those advantages that Michigan had in the trenches.
But when you stick 85 guys in the box, I mean, every scholarship player that ECU has goes in the box. Can we make an adjustment at the line of scrimmage? Can we run a little play action? Or is our play calling and Michigan's play calling that predictable each and every week that it's like run, pass, punt, or whatever, third down completion? Great. Let's start the whole process all over again. I look to Illinois, Toledo, and I know you have a college football weekly segment with Toledo and Mike Robinson. Love Mike Robb. Shout out to that guy, doing a great job. But Illinois' play calling on that first series, when you looked at how they were going up against Toledo, if any of our viewers watch this, Illinois was so unpredictable. You had no idea what in the world they were going to call and what play they were going to run. And for just one time, I want that to happen for Michigan. I want it to be like, you know what? I have no idea what we're going to do here. It could be 2nd and 10. It could be 1st and 12 or 1st and 15 after a penalty. Pardon me. 2nd and 12 doesn't matter. Let's have an offense that runs with a little bit of, I don't know, maybe like a mischievous offense. Like, let's do some things that are a little bit out of the box. And that means when they bring 8-9 guys in the box, hey, you know what? Let's run a little play action. Let's hit a drag route with a tight end, Colson Loveland, who had a great game. Let's him go in the opposite way, off of that action, to the far side of the field. Like, let's mix it up a little bit so we're not as predictable. Because yes, if they're sending 8 guys in the box, throw it over the top. Why wouldn't you? It doesn't seem like it should be, anything outside of like common sense. That's what's frustrating for me, and I think that that's what's frustrating for a lot of Michigan faithful when they watch it. It just looks so predictable.
It's fascinating that you bring that up because obviously Jim Harbaugh was not at the game. Sharon Moore was not at the game. So you had Kirk Campbell as the play caller. Harbaugh and Moore watched the game together at Moore's house. And on Monday, Harbaugh talked about we'd be sitting there talking like, yeah, we should do this play here. And inevitably, that's what Kirk Campbell would call. So it seems like the Michigan brass was all in line and they liked what they were doing. But you want some more unpredictability because the Michigan's greatest hits are getting old. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I look at it this way. So if you go to the Michigan website and you want to go to the record book, right? The first 11 pages outside of the intro page, you have to get all the way to page 12 is what I'm saying to find a passing record. I don't know if it's like that in every other record book, but for me, yes. I mean, all the records like that's the pride of Michigan football, being able to own the line of scrimmage. And, it doesn't matter if you put 8 guys in the box. That's totally fine. We've got the dogs that are going to be able to block up front. We take pride in that Joe Moore award, not once, but 2 years in a row. We should be able to run the football right at you and impose our will. But when that doesn't happen, and we saw that not be able to happen against TCU last year in that first half, we saw it happen for 4 quarters against Georgia. Eventually something has got to change. And that's why when I look at, okay, Michigan wins by 27 points, you're supposed to. You're the number 2 team in the country. Look around you. I mean, I'm as concerned about Michigan as I am about Ohio State right now. I didn't think their performance against Indiana was anything to write home about. But yes, the non-conference, okay, you're working out the kinks, fine. Maybe we'll see something different against UNLV, but I doubt it, right? I mean, because that's who Michigan is. They want to be able to run the football. But when you have 2 guys that are, nationwide regarded as the best 1-2 punch in the backfield for running the football in the entire country, and they muster 73 yards and 37 yards, that doesn't really say a whole lot to me. It's not that they're not talented, but the guys up front, they didn't create what they needed to against East Carolina. So what happens when you play Penn State? What happens when you play Ohio State, a Michigan State team that's going to have absolutely nothing to lose? Like, those kids are going to play angry, and odds are they're probably going to have some better athletes out there in the field. That's what is, I guess, concerning. Is it tried and true? Yes. Is it the bread and butter? Yes. The MO, the mantra, all the cliches? Yes. But if it's not working and you're seeing the defense present itself in such a way, you're going to have to develop a game plan or develop adjustments in game by giving JJ McCarthy the free rein to be able to throw that football down the field. Make the adjustment at the line of scrimmage and say, hey, you know what, Blake? We're going to go a little RPO here. Let's see what happens, because JJ is great with his feet. He's great throwing the ball on the run. And I'm all about running the football and stopping the run. But when the run isn't working, you got to go to the air. JJ did a great job of that. That's why Michigan wins, because if it was just running the football, I'm not overly convinced that Michigan was winning that line of scrimmage.
Let's go on the other side of the ball. The Michigan defense, they gave up the late field goal. That's it. Forced a couple of turnovers. Were you impressed with what you saw defensively from Michigan outside of maybe getting some more pressure on that Pirate quarterback?
Yes and no. I mean, they did kind of what was, expected. East Carolina goes for 132 in the air, 103 on the ground. So you're looking at what, 235 yards of total offense. I guess I'm, somewhat happy. I really like the fact that they had 1 interception called back, and Mike Sainristil still was fabulous on his pick. The secondary was going to be a little bit concerning. They still have a lot of, I don't want to say inexperience, because they do have some guys back that have played some quality snaps at the collegiate level, but they're still relatively young outside of Sainristil, right? So you're thinking about the secondary, and if the defensive line isn't getting the pressure that they want, if they're not being able to force the football out, and even if they are, how is the secondary reacting? There were a couple plays in which I thought the secondary was a little bit late to turn their head to see the ball. Thought they got away with a couple of those that, in another game, maybe they get flagged for pass interference for not being able to see the ball and get their head around, get a face guarding or whatnot. So all in all, am I happy with it? Sure, you held the team to 3 points, garbage time field goal. Like, that's totally fine. But still, without, and I know that, okay, if the quarterback's scrambling, it's going to be more difficult for him for you to be able to get him down. That makes total sense. But at the end of the day, you have to get to the quarterback. You're going to have to be able to do that. I know they had 4 or 5 tackles for loss. So they were able to get a little bit of penetration, just not so much on the passing downs. That could be a little bit of a testament to the secondary. Could be a little bit of a testament to, getting, being able to get some penetration. But I think it was kind of a business as usual sort of game. 230 yards against ECU. What does that look like against Ohio State? because that's where we're at in college football. You play these 3 non-conference games, then you get what? Rutgers. So we're really looking at Penn State, Michigan State, and Ohio State is basically your season as long as you don't slip up somewhere along the way. So that's what everything is. Everything is a preparation to beat those teams. So if it's week 1, not being overly super critical, sure, you allowed 3 points, kept them under 250 yards. That's going to win most games, right? But long term, we're going to have to find some solutions.
You've got Jesse Minter, the acting head coach for the first game. Now, this game, not one, but 2 acting head coaches, as Jay Harbaugh, the special teams coordinator, he'll take the first half of the game. Mike Hart, the running backs coach, will take the second half of the game. It's an interesting setup. A lot of it's going to be dependent upon all the preparation leading up to the game against UNLV, but I don't know if we've ever seen this, having 2 acting head coaches in one game like this.
It's weird, it's strange, and it comes back to, like, what does it really matter, right? Because, I mean, if Sharon Moore is back after his 1-game suspension, then the offense is pretty much going to be in lockstep. You don't really have any questions there. I mean, UNLV beat Bryant 44-14. I don't know Bryant's last name, but I can't imagine that's, wink, wink, me making, look at me so punny over here. I don't know how much that head coaching position in these first 3 really matters. I honestly don't. I mean, the guys seem, when they walked onto the field, those free Harbaugh shirts, and I know that wrinkled a lot of feathers, ruffled a lot of feathers, I should say. A lot of folks either on, the internet or wherever, but the guys seemed juiced to go out there and win, right? They seemed locked in. They seemed ready to play. They seemed like they wanted to prove a point for Jim Harbaugh. Yes, I know it's a self-imposed suspension. So you can save me on that on Twitter. We've seen it all. Trust me, it's been a long 48, 72 hours or however long it's been. But I don't know, outside of that head coach, just from an organizational standpoint, offensively and defensively, they should be good on the play calls. If there's maybe some situational stuff that you want to go over, you maybe call a timeout. But I don't know. You want to split the game into 2 halves? That's totally fine by me, because I really just don't know how much of a difference that makes.
You mentioned UNLV. They had the win last week. A very fast team from this Rebels team. Just a second meeting ever between UNLV and Michigan. Of course, Michigan won the first meeting. UNLV, are they going to be a better challenge than ECU?
Oh, crapshoot. I think that UNLV I would like to say more than likely, because ECU lost some talent off that roster from last season, but I think that this one could probably be, a little bit worse. They were a team that against Bryant had, they did all their work on the ground. They had 40 carries for like 200 some yards, right? I mean, they were just pounding the rock, 5 touchdowns on the ground. They couldn't really do anything passing the ball through the air, 126 yards passing and a pick between 2 different quarterbacks that they trotted out there. UNLV is in for a world of hurt in this football game. And if all they can do is run, Michigan is going to be licking their chops to be able to get back in the backfield. So, a 30-3 kind of game, I could see that. I could see, a 35-6, maybe score 40 points. I don't know. I want to ask too much, but maybe a 42-7 type of contest here. I don't think UNLV stands much of a chance, just because they can't move the ball through the air.
Rebels head coach Barry Odom, former Missouri head coach, played at Missouri under Gary Pinkel. Very much a Gary Pinkel disciple. We'll see if that makes a difference, as the former Rocket head coach has one of his guys in the big house. I want to thank Anthony Bellino from the X's and Bros show for joining us. Anthony, thank you so much.
Mark, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.